Okay. So welcome everyone. This is we're talking with Farrell Cat. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And so Farrell, help me understand a little bit about. So first of all, thank you so much for coming on stream today.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I'd love to hear a little bit about what you thought about our last stream and sort of what motivated you to come on stream today.
Yeah, honestly, like last stream, I didn't know what to expect whenever like Kinga told me about it, but it really impressed me. Like I really liked what you had to say about especially the part about just gamers and kind of their mindset and stuff like that. And I think I've experienced something similar for sure, like back in the spring. Pretty sure I was like I guess addicted to gaming. Like I could stop, but
Hmm.
the things that you were saying really were really relatable. So,
Okay. And
yeah.
when you say the things that I was saying, what do you think was applicable to your situation back in the spring?
I think you said like one thing that really resonated, and it was more like you know what you need to do, but you don't do it.
Hmm.
And so I think that for sure, like I would kind of just like play games all day or like try to improve for stream, stuff like that. But I wasn't focused on like my personal goals as well. And so it definitely like interfered. Sorry, my cat's gonna make an appearance.
So yeah, and but it sounds like you were saying that in March or earlier
Mhm.
that was an issue. So that implies that
Right.
things have gotten better.
Yes. So I like kind of put a limit on myself now where I'll have days where I don't have class or something like that. And I'll give myself a certain amount of free time or like a certain amount of games or something, and then just kind of go from there and not play anymore. And I still give myself a little bit too much free time sometimes, but I don't think I get that same, like, I don't know if like feedback is the right word. Um, but it's a different kind of reward, I guess. It's more like a free time sort of
Yeah. So
reward.
Farrell, if I can push you a little bit on that, like, so why didn't you do that in the spring? Like, what's changed?
Well, during that time, like I was actually on a medication that was giving me like really bad anxiety and probably like depression now that I think back on it, but I
Hmm.
just wasn't realizing it then. And I think that I guess like playing games was more like just to kind of not think about it for sure because like it was hard for me to go to class or like just get everything done, stuff like that. So now I've like cleared up those sort of issues, and I think clearing up like the physical issues and also like some, I mean, not completely like the mental issues with it, but that definitely helped a lot. So,
I got to toss out a
yeah.
disclaimer at this point. So, I'm a
Mhm.
psychiatrist, but I cannot
Right.
dispense medical advice over the internet. Um,
Yeah.
and so I'm glad that if you so this is a common problem I do see is that
Mhm.
a lot of gamers get started on medication because they sort of
Mhm.
fit a bucket, right? So when you go and
Mhm.
see a psychiatrist or a therapist, a lot of
Right.
times like they haven't. I mean, no one really gets trained in video game addiction right now because we don't
Right.
really understand it. So you'll
Right.
get a lot of times people will get started on things like medications and those will have side effects.
Mhm.
It's actually a really common problem that I see. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, that's okay. The medication I was on wasn't like related to like anxiety or depression or anything. It
Okay,
was
okay,
just the side
okay,
effects came from it. Yeah.
okay.
So,
Um,
mhm.
yeah. And now it sounds like things are going better for you.
Right. Yeah, they're going better on in that aspect, I guess, if that makes sense. Like I'm able to kind of pull myself out of those situations better, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
what situation are you pulling yourself out of?
I think just getting like I kind of get into a cycle of letting myself be lazy in a sense, or like letting myself, just kind of put actual responsibilities aside and just like play games or like even stream. I wouldn't say I like stream too much because like streaming is very exhausting, I guess. Like you have to put a
Mm.
lot of energy out for that. So I think if you can just sit back and play games and not stream, it's a bit more addicting in that sense. But now I know like when I'm, I guess, going too far, I guess, and I'm like, okay, like we need to do some responsibilities, like be productive now instead of just
Hmm. What
letting
about
yourself.
streaming is exhausting?
I think as a streamer, like you kind of just have to be on at all times to be like keep your viewers or like entertain your audience, stuff like that. So
Hmm.
that can definitely get really tiring, especially whenever inside you really just kind of want to sit there and be like, oh, I just want to like kind of lay back for a minute and just like chill out. But it's if you do that, I think I don't know if that's a common problem with streamers, but you
Very.
might. yeah, you might lose your viewers, or, you know, somebody
Yeah.
might get bored. Like, what if somebody came in at that minute? Like, there are even videos on YouTube that tell you, like, you know, you never know whenever someone is going to stop into your stream, and whenever they do, you want to be on and like be entertaining so they stay, which is like, I guess, a good tip, but kind of not good for your mentality.
Yeah. So what happens if someone comes onto your stream and you're not firing on all cylinders?
I mean, I think I can kind of give this from my experience just going into other people's streams too. And of course, I like don't do this on purpose. If I've already established a relationship with someone or something like that, I would stay. But if you're going to someone's new stream and they're just sitting there like not talking, I guess it could definitely not be as entertaining for someone
Yeah.
to walk into.
So what's wrong with that?
Yeah. I think it makes it really hard on the streamer. It makes it very mentally exhausting, and like, I don't know how else to describe it, but
Yeah, so I guess I'm asking a slight. My question was a little bit vague. So I understand that it's mentally exhausting. What I'm saying is,
right.
what's wrong with you being on stream and someone coming and not being entertained?
Well, I guess a streamer themselves, or like me personally, I would not feel like I'm doing something wrong in a sense, but I guess kind of that's how I would feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
that is
right?
how
So let's think
like,
about
oh,
that
it's
for a
not
second. What are you doing wrong?
technically nothing, but
Absolutely. But that's
yeah,
not how it feels.
right.
So what do you feel like you're doing wrong?
I think in that moment, it would be like not growing my stream
It
versus
would
growing it, you know? So,
yeah.
yeah.
There you go. Right?
Yeah.
So why is it important to grow your stream?
I think both feeling successful with it and knowing that you've put so much time into it that, like, if you're doing it for nothing, why are you doing it? And I think that gets kind of hard because a lot of people start for fun, and say, like, I mean, I know I started for fun. I didn't care about views and stuff like that. And to an extent, like, I have to kind of push myself away from caring about that. But at the same time, I think a lot of people put, you know, themselves for Twitch's goals for like partnership or something like that, like certain viewership. And it makes it hard to not focus on the numbers because how else do you track your success, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you started out streaming for fun, and
Mhm.
then why do you stream now?
It, yeah, I actually took a break over the summer because I think I kind of lost sight of why I did stream and other issues as well. But I try not to stream if I know that I'm about to stream for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. Like if I'm like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm only gonna stream because it's going to please everyone," or because I'm not keeping to my schedule or whatever. So now I kind of try to stream whenever I'm in a good mindset and I know that I'm doing it because I wanna have fun and, like, connect with everyone, and yeah, so
Okay.
mhm.
That sounds like a big point of personal growth for you.
Right, definitely. I think I took, like, a 2-month break from it, and if I wouldn't have, I don't know if I'd still be streaming. So
Yeah, so let's just think a little bit about, like, so it sounds like you started out streaming for fun,
mhm.
and then something changed, and then you kind of like dove in a little bit too deep. You started
Right.
streaming for quote unquote all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
then you took a break, and
Mhm.
now you're kind of back into it with, like, sort of
Mhm.
enjoyment and fun. You're kind of streaming for the original reasons.
Right.
So what was it that changed there in the middle? How did streaming become not very fun for you?
I remember there was a time back in December where I guess my stream started picking up a lot, and I got pretty close to, like, getting partnered, except, I wasn't streaming enough days, I guess, and so what I've, like, realized now is that I didn't know why I would, like, avoid streaming at that point, but I think I thought I wasn't going to get it anyway, so if I just kind of, like, didn't stream enough days, I could, like, blame it on that reason, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
beautiful. Can we talk about that? Because I think that's something
Yeah.
that. So I want to introduce this concept to you guys of ego, right? So, like, our ego is a very, very fragile thing. And the more confident we become, actually, the smaller our ego becomes. And so I know that, like, so part of the reason that I skipped class is because if I went to class and then got a bad grade on the test, then I
Yeah.
was stupid. right?
Yeah.
But if I skipped class, then the reason that I got a bad grade is like I have this out for my ego, right? Like it's like, okay, so if I'm half-assing it, that's the reason I didn't get the partnership. It's not because I actually tried my hardest and I'm not good enough.
Right. No, that's exactly why I skip class too sometimes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So Farrell, where do you get the idea that you may not be good enough?
You know, I've talked about this a little bit before, so I think I have a better idea now, but I think it definitely has to do with just past like relationships, like romantic and with my parents and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. So as we can see on stream, so you're becoming a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. You realized it before I did.
Yeah. So something about your facial expression and your tone and stuff changed. It's okay. We're just going to steer clear to a different topic so you can relax.
Okay.
The other thing that tends to happen is sometimes when you point out that people are becoming uncomfortable, they become even more uncomfortable.
Oh, okay.
And but so I think that's I'm going to kind of steer a little bit because
Okay.
I'm new to doing this over the internet. Like I have a relationship with Kanga, so I don't mind diving in with him, but
No,
I
that's
feel
okay.
a little bit more protective.
I don't mind being uncomfortable, so it's okay.
Okay, I mean, do you want to? So Farrell, we're at a fork in the road, right? So we can talk a little bit more about streaming, or we can talk a little bit more about you. What would you prefer?
Probably streaming, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm glad you are. So, a couple of other ground rules. So like if there's anything that you don't want to talk about, just say that. Okay. And, the viewers can go screw themselves. So remember that we're ultimately here for you. And this isn't a show. I mean, the goal of this is to help people, not actually entertain people. So
right, that's true. Well, I think I haven't really ever talked about streaming with a therapist or anything, so I think that would also be helpful for me too.
Yeah. So why does when you start to stream, I guess that what it sounds like what started to happen is you had certain reasons which were yours, but then something changed and you started to feel judged or more insidiously valued based on the content of your stream.
Right. So I think it was a combination of like people kind of pushing me, I guess, or like also expecting more. Like, because definitely like chat has a way of like some things that they say that I think kind of like eat at a lot of streamers is whenever anyone comments on like view count, like low or high, like even if someone's like, oh my God, like you have like 1,000 viewers or something, or oh, you only have 2 viewers, something like that. Like either way, I don't like those comments because I turn my viewer count off because I don't like, I don't know, it'll mess with me, So I try not to look at it, and that helps me just kind of like have a more pleasant stream in general. And also I think people just being like, oh wow, like when are you gonna apply for partner? When are you gonna do this? Like you have so many viewers. Or even the comments like, oh wow, you should have more viewers. Why do you only have this many? I think that's meant as a compliment, but it's kind of like low-key not a compliment. It's like,
yeah, it's like negging.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, what are you doing wrong?
You don't have that many viewers. Yeah. Like, why don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I think it's a really insightful point on your part to recognize that viewership has this kind of impact on you. So let's dig down a little bit further. Like, why do you turn off viewers? What do all these comments do to you?
So I can't remember when exactly I started turning off viewers. It was definitely probably like 9 to 10 months ago. I used to leave it on because I wanted to like see what games did better for like what viewers, but like, wow, that's a really unhealthy way to look at it. So
what's unhealthy about that?
I think like if you're putting yourself through playing something you don't really like just to get more viewers, that's just like at the end of the day, like you're not going to be happy, and I don't know, it'll just put you in a negative mood. Like that's what I've learned at least.
Yeah,
like,
I think that's definitely true. So if it's okay with you, Farrell, we'll dig. Why?
I think whenever you're doing something only for other people's, like, I guess it's kind of a roundabout way, like it's for their entertainment, yet it comes back for your views. So that's kind of how you justify it. But at the end of the day, if like you're not happy with what you're doing, I think that's where you start streaming for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. So I'm going to toss out a word. Authentic versus inauthentic.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think authenticity would be whenever you just stream whatever game you want for
Yeah.
whatever viewer count, for sure.
So I work with a lot of people who
Mm-hmm.
suffer a lot. And I think that the biggest thing that I found is that when a human being is living a life that they feel authentic,
Mm-hmm.
that it feels good to them.
Right.
And if we kind of circle back to like, why you started out streaming, that felt authentic to me.
Yeah.
And then after you took your break, you actually sort of rediscovered your authenticity.
Right.
And the funny thing about streaming is that like as you stream, you start to adopt like a value system, which is like quantifiable, which actually our brains are wired to do. Right? We think about these things like, let's say, popularity in high school, which is like such a vague thing. But now we have a way to actually quantify, and this may sound judgmental, so I apologize, but we have a way to quantify your value as a human being.
Yeah.
It's the number of viewers you get. It's the number of partnerships you get. It's a way for you to rank yourself in terms of value compared to other people. Did you find yourself, like when you were in the dark place of streaming, did you find yourself comparing yourself to other people?
Yeah, for sure. Like I would, oh my gosh, yeah. I don't know if anyone else does this. I'm sure they do, but I would find myself like, I guess comparing myself to other people who had like similar number of followers and being like, well, okay, if we have like a similar number of followers, why are they getting this many views? I'm getting this many views, something like that. Like it was crazy. Like that, if I did that now, I would drive myself insane. So yeah, I don't know. I would do that. And then I think one thing that I would definitely do is like not even play games, because a lot of girls will get more viewers in like the just chatting section where, I mean, I guess that's what y'all are streaming in now, but you can just kind of talk about whatever. And people would lose interest if you would start playing games. And so I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like, and that was not very enjoyable. Like I started streaming to play games, like, and make friends, So yeah.
Yeah. So what was it within? So like, let's just think a little bit about this for a second. So there was something inside you that was driving you to do things that you did not enjoy and made you suffer.
Right. Yeah.
What the hell was that?
I guess the shallow answer in that would be to like, oh, just grit your teeth through this so that you can get partner.
Okay.
So
why is that a shallow answer?
I'm sure there are deeper issues to that, but I'm not exactly sure what they are, I guess. So
Farrell, you do something sometimes, rarely, which is that you make self-judgmental or self-critical statements. You devalue yourself. Do you see that? Like, this is a shallow, like, why is that a shallow answer?
I guess it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I would encourage you to think a little bit about, I think that is a deep answer, right? That like, I think that there's a part of you that it looks like you have a lot of really positive qualities, which I think are getting hijacked by the streaming, which is that it sounds like you're oriented towards success, like you're calculating, you're like optimizing. I'd be very curious if you're comfortable sharing. So I just realized, before we started stream that I asked you where you're from, and I guess maybe I shouldn't do those kinds of things on stream. It's like a natural thing, but
it's okay. It's okay. I say what state I'm from, but yeah, nothing more than that.
Anyway, I was from Houston, so anytime I see another Texan, I get. Do you watch college football?
No.
Okay. Anyway, there was a couple of good games yesterday, but
okay.
I guess not the right platform, right, for Twitch. But so just to kind of think back a little bit about, like, you're saying about this stuff is shallow, but I don't think so, right? Because you don't strike me as a very, and forgive me, maybe this is a judgmental statement too. You don't strike me as a very shallow person. Do you feel like a shallow person?
No.
Okay. So what was it that caused you to kind of, what mattered to, like, so you value viewership, partnership. What is it within you that values that? Right? Because whatever that thing is causing you to engage in behaviors that cause you a lot of like suffering.
Right.
So what is that thing?
Definitely like the feeling of success, I guess. I think that's the best answer for that.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, why would you be doing it?
Yeah. And what is that feeling? What does that mean?
That's a good feeling. I mean, success is good. So I think putting
Ah.
yourself through those bad feelings to feel the good success.
Does that sound good to you?
No, not entirely, but
Yeah. So I'm going to also ask you to think a little bit about whether, so we have this blanket idea that success is better than failure, right? What do you think about that?
I think that's something I tell myself a lot is not true. But
And-
I don't think I've completely internalized that yet.
What do you tell yourself? Let's be clear.
Well, I think, I don't know so much with streaming. Well, I have an example with streaming too, but definitely with school. Like, that's something I'm trying to kind of flip around so that that's what I've been telling myself this semester is it's better to go, even if I do bad, at least I'll learn from it. Whereas I used to just not go because, you know, like you said earlier, you wouldn't even have a chance to do bad. So
Yeah.
with streaming, I think whenever I came back to it early August, I pretty much had to tell myself, like, okay, like, even if I lost pretty much everyone and I only have, you know, one viewer that comes back, like, I want to do it for the original reasons, and I just want it to be fun again. So.
Okay, so Farrell, I'd like to change gears for a second and offer a couple of general principles, which I think may apply to our viewership.
Sure.
But
yeah.
So I want you to notice. So there's something that I think about, which is an action orientation versus an outcome orientation. So sometimes people focus on the actions and sometimes people focus on the outcomes. And generally speaking, I think that gamers, because games sort of train our brain to do this, they care about the outcome, right? Like a lot of times if you think about a game, it's not about whether you played a good game, it's about whether you won or lost.
Right.
Right? So there are like goals and there are objectives and things like that. And would you say that you tend to focus on outcomes or do you focus on actions?
I think I focus on outcomes, for sure.
Okay. What do you think about that?
I think that makes the in-between from start to finish less enjoyable, I guess. Because, like, I guess in a game, if you're doing really bad and you still win, it's like, well, that kind of sucked, but at least you got the win or, like, you know, the rank up or whatever. And then I guess in classes, I kind of see myself doing that too. Like, I'll, if it says on the syllabus, oh, well, your final replaces your lowest grade or something like that. Like, I just won't care about one exam and then leave it to the final. And then whenever I get there, I'm always like, wow, I really shouldn't have done that. So,
yeah. So I want to ask you, so we were talking a little bit about, you know, you were saying that nowadays you decided recently that you're going to go to school anyway, because at least even if you don't do well, you'll learn something.
right.
Is that focusing on an action or focusing on an outcome?
I think that's focusing on an action for sure, because you're
And
just
how do,
going and it doesn't matter what the outcome is.
yeah. So how does that make you feel?
Better.
Better. Yeah.
Yes.
So let me ask you, when you started streaming, were you focused on actions or were you focused on outcomes?
Actions, probably, because it was more about, like, oh my God, I'm so excited to go live, you know, not, oh my God, like, how many people are going to show up?
Absolutely. And then when streaming started to be crappy for you, were you focused on actions or outcomes?
Outcomes for sure, because I would make myself go live and be like, even if this, like, was not fun for me, at least I'll get that extra day with the viewership towards the partnership or whatever.
Absolutely. So, and now that you've recharged, right, are you focusing on actions or outcomes in streaming?
Definitely actions. Like, I may go a week without streaming just because I have to put school first, and it doesn't bother me. Like, it does a little bit, but not near to the extent it used to. Like, I'll be like, people will still be there. If they're not and they're not understanding, like, I don't really want them there anyway. So, yeah, I'm more doing it for fun. I actually do not care about partnership at all now. Like, if I don't get partnered, it does not a big deal to me. So.
What is partnership, by the way? Can you explain that to me?
So that's kind of like what every, like, I see y'all are about to be affiliates on here. So basically you can start getting subs and then you start making money from subs. And then partnership is kind of where companies will start taking you more seriously. And I guess people will start seeing you more as a serious streamer. Yeah, it's like getting verified on something or something like that. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main goals for a lot of streamers is to get partners. So
yeah. So I just want to kind of tunnel down for this, or just restate this. So, I mean, if we listen to Farrell's story, right, we see a pretty classic thing where you start out like being yourself, right? And you're like doing things for the sake of fun and all that good stuff. And then instead of like doing streaming for the sake of streaming, you start streaming for the sake of something else, right? You're not doing the thing for the sake of the thing. And I think a lot about this. So I work with a lot of gamers around, you know, fitness is another issue. And a lot of people will like come into my office and will say like, oh, you know, I want to get in shape.
Right.
And they focus on this target of getting in shape. So Farrell, let me ask you, can you get in shape?
Yeah. Like,
how?
Well, by actually going and working out.
Yeah. So I would argue that actually it's impossible to get in shape, because what does that even mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah, that's like some arbitrary end goal you put on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. Not only is it arbitrary, it's also like not quantifiable. At least with partnership, you've got a grade,
right?
But something like getting in shape. So people like are like, oh, I want to get in shape. And then the problem with focusing on an outcome is that if you have a setback, you feel like a failure.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
And the cool thing about what you've managed to do is you've started to focus on your actions, which is like, I'm not going to worry about whether I get in shape or not, is like, I don't care about. What I care about is doing 10 push-ups a day. Like I'm going to do 10 push-ups a day. And I think what's cool is like, you know, you're starting to say like, okay, I'm going to stream for the sake, I'm just going to start streaming. I'm going to like, that's the equivalent of just doing 10 push-ups a day. And if I get partnership, fantastic. If I don't get partnership, that's fine too. Yeah. I'm going to go to class. Do you mind if I ask what you're studying?
Biomedical science.
And what do you want to do with that? Do you know?
Well, I'm kind of going back to wanting to do like pre-PA.
Okay. Awesome.
So I think that also having like a goal in mind is very hard for me to do something without having a goal. So whenever I was just studying and not having like a goal like that, because I used to be like pre-med, pre-PA, but I kind of steered away from that. And now
good for you.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. So
but, yeah, good. I had a very similar, so I was pre-med when I entered college, but I was pre-med because I was brown. And you know, my parents were doctors and things like that. And like, that's what the brown kids did at the University of Texas at Austin, is they were all pre-med.
Right.
And then decided not to become a doctor. And then years later decided that I needed to become a doctor.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of value in sort of arbitrarily doing something because you kind of put a target to it, and then sort of really doing some soul searching. Like, so now it sounds like you're circling back to it and it's something that you're serious about. Yeah.
So my parents were the same too. Like they expected me to be an engineer or a doctor, like something like that. And I was super, super motivated like freshman year, sophomore year. And then I wasn't doing it for me. So that just can't stick, you know? So so then once I don't know, I've been thinking about it for the past like month or so, and I noticed that I do this, like I kind of search for like approval with things. So like I'll tell people things before I even know what I think of it. And so I told myself like, I am not going to do that this time. Like I'm not going to mention it to anyone. And so I've been thinking about it for about a month now, again, not mentioning it to anyone and not losing interest, because sometimes it'll just kind of come back and I'll be like, maybe, and then kind of never think about it again. But yeah, I didn't lose interest. And then I started kind of being like, okay, now I can ask people just to get kind of like help, I guess, because I feel very behind now, but it's okay. I'm willing to work through it.
So I'm a little bit curious about this thing that you said where you kind of like, you didn't even realize that you wanted to do something, but you ask other people about it first. Can you help me understand that a little bit?
So I think like the second something pops into my mind, like, oh, this sounds interesting to me, I'll like tell someone. And I think not because I'm excited about it, maybe that's part of it, but more maybe I want to see what they think about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Why do you do that?
Honestly, probably just searching for like approval to make me feel good about it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's the right answer. So the next question is, what is it that makes you feel like you need other people's I've asked you this before. You said that has something to do with prior romantic relationships, right?
Yeah, and my parents. So
yeah. So and that's common, by the way. So if you guys have like you have tiger parents.
Well, my mom.
Yeah. Is it is it okay if I ask some questions about your
Yeah, that's
relationship with
okay.
them? So
Sure.
tell us about your mom.
So
Now we
she
are doing the psychiatry. Not
yeah.
really, but
Now I'm about to look really squirmy. No. Yeah, so she like puts the goals on me, but I mentioned this before, I think I don't remember if it was in this interview, but she really only cares about my appearance and how our appearance is to other people, if that makes sense. But I think
very common in Texas.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I could. I mean, I say I could care less. There's definitely a little part of me that just like cares because that's kind of how I was like brought up. But in general, I try to not care about that because it just makes me not happy. But yeah, and she puts goals on me and like then doesn't really offer any emotional help, if that makes sense. Like she tries to offer, like financial or like physical help or anything like that. But whenever it comes to like I could probably do all that on my own, like for example, if I move into a new place, she will try to come over every week to like organize things for me. I'm like, I can organize things. Like, I don't need your help. Like stuff like that. Just very overbearing. But my dad, oh sorry, go ahead.
What do you need her help with?
Well, I think now I kind of just like try to like push myself away because there's no sense of boundaries there. So I just don't want to like put myself through the stress of it.
Okay.
But I think I'm more wish that there was more emotional like nurturing when I was younger. That makes sense. I think that would have helped with a lot of things now, but
Yeah.
yeah.
What when you say that you wish there was more emotional nurturing, what do you mean by
Mhm.
that? What do you wish she did?
I think that's that's a long answer. Um I'm trying to give examples of like small things. I guess like I mentioned now, she would help with anything like financially or physically, but whenever I guess it came to me making my own decisions or having my own opinions about things or even just like speaking about things, like I wasn't allowed to. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to like think on my own.
Uh-huh.
Like if it wasn't what she thought, it wasn't right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So it sounds like she doesn't believe in opinions. It's all fact, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Farrell, that's great that I think it's really awesome that you've started to really understand this because that happens a lot when you have someone who doesn't allow you to express your opinions,
Mm-hmm.
then you end up sort of needing approval because you don't
Right.
learn how to express your opinions. You don't learn how to be confident in what you believe in.
Yeah, for sure.
And it sounds like she also had a lot of expectations. I'm just wondering, is there any chance we're like shooting you in the foot because this is like being streamed on the internet? And she's gonna
No, she doesn't know how to find it. It's okay.
Okay.
But she's very disapproving of streaming. So yeah.
Why is
She
that?
just well, I think literally the only reason is because of how it would look to other people. Because whenever I first told her about it, she was like, "Okay, that's cool." And then I think she told someone about it and they maybe had a bad reaction. And then after that, it's just been
Hmm.
like, "You need to quit. Like this is stupid. Stop doing it. Everyone hates it. Like you're so sad
Who's
for keeping on doing it." So,
who's
yeah.
everyone? And everyone hates it.
Like my family or she'll she'll bring my dad's opinions into it about, oh, he hates it so much, like it's so sad that you're doing it regardless of what he thinks or whatever.
What's
But
sad
whenever I
about
talk to him one-on-one, like he's like, I just want you to be safe. Like he's just scared about the you know sort of, what's it even called, the swatting or stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's actually a real concern. So I
right,
hope you are
exactly.
being
So I'm
safe.
like, I totally understand that. But no, that's not what she really, I mean, I'm sure she's concerned about that too, but
And can you tell me a little bit about your uh, dad?
yeah. So we have conflicting opinions sometimes, but we both respect those. So
You guys can
that's
respectfully
basically
disagree.
right. So we can talk about things and he'll be like, "Oh no, I don't think that," and I'll be like, "Well, I don't think that," or whatever. He's like, "Okay." At the end of the day, we're still going to get along. It's not going to cause an argument. So
Um, yeah. What do you think, Carol? So do you think
I'm seeing on the chat.
So I guess Sahil had a question that Domination Time asked. Is Kat's mother projecting her opinions on others? What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's to the extent where my grandparents weren't allowed to talk to me because she didn't want them to, because they were allowing me to have my own opinions. Like, that sounds so crazy saying it now. That's why I'm laughing. But it's just like, yeah, that would.
So it sounds like your mom is very controlling.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
Very controlling.
I think so when your mom comes to you and says everyone will think less of you if you stream, do you think that that's her opinion, or is she projecting her opinion on other people?
Ooh, that's hard. It's hard for me to get into what she thinks, I guess. Like, she reacts so differently to so many situations that I can't tell you probably. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah. So, so when I work with, I'm not going to ask you where you're from, but I think I may know, just based on the cultures of different cities in Texas. So, there's one city in Texas in particular that people are very, very image conscious. There's a lot of old money there. And one of the things that I noticed about, a lot of people who have kind of opinions about what other people think is it's not so much that, so is she projecting her opinions on other people? That's possible. The other possibility is that actually her opinion of herself is based upon the reflection of others.
That's, I think, exactly it.
So I'd say in a funny way, it's the opposite. That it's not that she's projecting her opinion. It's that if other people have this opinion, she's going to own it because that's real.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So the funny thing about, we started this talk by talking about authenticity. How authentic is your mother?
0%.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, not at all. So
now, Farrell, let me ask you another question. How can you guys hear the air conditioner, by the way? Does it sound okay? Okay.
I can.
Farrell, how happy is your mom?
Ooh, well, to other people, she's very happy. But in reality,
Excellent.
I don't think so.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, she can't be. Like, I don't think a happy person would act like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the really scary thing is that, you have a little bit of your mother inside you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
unfortunately.
Yeah. Where do you see it come out? Or where do you notice it?
Luckily, I don't notice it like a lot, but definitely whenever I'm worried about like appearance and what other people think, for sure.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah. So.
Right. And that's the kind of thing that's actually, like, unfortunately, that to a certain degree, Farrell, is baked into you now.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that, it's funny because the struggle that you have with streaming is probably the struggle she has every day in her life. Right? Where it's far more nebulous, but like she's concerned about how it's going to make you look. If you're someone who streams. And like, I don't understand what her impression of that is. Has she shared with you what that is? Or is it like it's like a boogie monster that's unformed and...
Well, I can never get a straight answer out of her. Like, if I ask anything, there's never a straight answer. It's always, I'm right because of this. Like, there's no actual answer. There's no talking about feelings. It's like, my opinion's right because I'm right. Like,
and when you ask her for a straight answer, what's an example of a question?
Well, I think last night I actually went over to my parents' house and I was just like mentioning that I kind of wanted to pursue like PA again. And you think that's something that would make someone happy, right? But it turned into an argument because I wasn't going to go about it the exact way that she wanted me to. So it went down to something as simple as like, oh, I'm going to email this person today. Oh, don't email them till Monday. It's rude to email on the weekend. I'm like,
what?
Okay. That's what I said. I was like, I'm going to pay them money. I don't think they care when I emailed them. But she was like, oh no, like it's not right. It turned into this huge argument. Like, I don't know why that should ever turn into an argument, but I'm pretty stubborn too. So I just kind of like stand my ground. I should probably just kind of like walk away from the situation. But
I don't know if I would advocate for that, but so, I mean, it just sounds incredibly frustrating to try to like have a relationship with your mom.
For sure, because my dad's like, "Oh, that's great. Like anything we can do to help, you know?" And I'm like, "Awesome." Like I think I don't know if it's a combination of her thinking I'm not capable of actually doing it myself, and also she thinks it's not able to be done in a way that's not how she wants it to be done.
What is that like for you?
Very frustrating.
Yeah.
Like I know that I'm capable of doing it, like without her help even. Like it's nice and I like the help, but she also like kind of uses the fact that she helps me as a means of I shouldn't ever be mad at anything she does. So
Yeah. So it sounds like she uses her support as ammunition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
So I think sometimes it's almost like
can I
she's doing it to get back at me later.
Yeah. Right? So
Yeah.
she uses the fact that she helps you to invalidate other things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel?
Frustrating as well, but also just like disappointing. I don't know.
What's disappointing about it?
I think it's just I see other people's moms support them like no matter what, I guess, and so I feel like I wouldn't be supported no matter what, for sure.
Yeah, your support sounds very conditional.
Right. Yeah.
That sounds. Can I cuss on stream?
Yeah. So
Okay, so that sounds fucking awful.
It is.
I mean, I felt like awful just doesn't do it justice.
Right. No, yeah, it's very very, very awful.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's okay, but it kind of sucks. So it's not really okay.
Yeah, good.
You know.
So that's great. So you know what you did just right there? Like that's actually beautiful. Did you notice what you did?
I didn't justify it.
Yeah. So I think that the part of it, there's a part of you that's your mom that would tell everyone it's okay.
Right.
Right? To keep up appearances.
Mm-hmm.
Because like demonstrating any kind of difficulty or pain or suffering or that things are not perfect is completely unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you just grew a little bit there. You grew a little bit, like you sort of freed yourself a little bit from her shadow by sort of saying, actually, it's not okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes things in life they're just bad.
Yeah.
You know, and it sounds like your mom in a lot of ways is actually like a wonderful and supportive person. Like, I mean, because I feel like it's kind of turning into a bashing session, but I mean, it does sound like she financially supports you and she tries to, you know, be there for you in her own way. And I have no doubt that in some part of her mind, she thinks that she's really looking out for you.
Yeah, I think so, because she grew up with like her mom was like that too, but like a lot worse, I think, according to like my dad, at least. You know, I wasn't there to witness it, so I don't know. But yeah, and so I think that may be the only way she knows how to support. So like not justifying it, but at the same time, if she was never taught better, like, or tried to know better, how would she really know? So.
Yeah, so it's good that you're not justifying it. What are you doing? Do you know?
I think I'm just trying to make it like bearable.
Yeah, so I think in the way that you're doing that is by trying to understand it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Like if I don't try to understand, I'll just get pissed off. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, Farrell, we've kind of covered a lot of ground today. It's gotten all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering, you know, let's just pause for a second and think a little bit about how we want to spend time. Like, do you want to see if people have questions, or, I mean, I can keep going if you want to keep going, or we can sort of call it and kind of talk about things, or the things that we haven't gotten to. What do you think?
Honestly, it's up to you. I don't care either way.
I guess I'll start asking people, you know, if they have questions. So I see Hmans13 was saying that we should talk about positives. Yeah, we did that, I think. I don't know if that was right around the time, but
it was exactly this.
So you know, if people have questions, feel free to ask them, and I guess I'll keep on, and then we'll check in about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, sure. So I think go for it, Kanga.
There's nothing yet.
Okay, great. So Farrell, how do you think about, like, what do you think about, so it's September, right? So you're in undergrad, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's right.
And so what are you thinking about this next year?
Um, well, a lot the past few days. Just kind of what I need to do to get myself back on track to kind of go to PA school. So it's going to be a long road, but I'm willing to fix the mistakes that I made. So,
Yeah.
or try
And what mistakes have you made?
definitely letting my GPA slip, and
How
I've kept up.
how
like,
far has it slipped?
I mean, in my eyes, it's really bad because I know I could have done better, but I'm at like a 2.8, 2.9 right now, which is bad in the medical field. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
So
definitely about to retake some classes, and luckily I've kept up with like shadowing, and I work in a physician's office, so I get a lot of the hands-on contact with patients and stuff.
yeah. So that's good. I'd say, keep plugging away at it. If I can offer a little bit of advice. So
Sure.
just keep at it. So I graduated with a 2.5 or 2.6 GPA after just colossally failing for 2 years. And it took me 3 years of applying and not getting into medical school to finally get in. But,
Right.
I stuck with it, and I encourage you to do
Right.
so.
Right. And I think this time I'm willing to stick with it, because I think a year or so ago I would have just quit as soon as it got hard. But now it's like, okay, well, it's going to be hard, but that's okay.
So what's changed?
I think knowing why I want to do it, and that I've tried other things and I keep coming back to it, and that's what I want to do. And like, I'm trying to move my stubbornness around in a good way,
Yeah.
to where I'll keep being stubborn about like not quitting
Mhm.
versus being stubborn about trying again, I guess. That's what I was kind of like, oh, well, I already gave up on it, so there's no point in trying again,
Yeah, that's great. So you call it stubborn. I'm going to toss out another word: resilient.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really resilient
I
approach.
like that
That's
word
awesome.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because we use words like stubborn. Like, so what's the difference between stubborn and perseverant? Do you know?
I think stubborn just has more of a negative connotation.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
what I learned a couple years ago is when I was applying and failing to get into medical school year after year, people would tell me that I was stubborn and that I should do something else. After I actually got in, they called me perseverant.
Right.
So I think stubborn is what people call you while you're failing, and perseverant is what they call you after you've succeeded. But it's basically the same thing. So I'd say stick with it. I think we have a one question that I saw that Whoopla asked, and completely fine if this feels off limits to you, Farrell. So he's asking about your relationships. Since we've been talking about your mom and dad already, I'm assuming he means romantic relationships.
Right. So he's actually my boyfriend. So
okay.
maybe. Wait, what was this question? Were you asking about like
how are your relationships?
Kappa. Okay. So I think he's saying it as a joke, but you can definitely ask questions if you want.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about sort of a lack of confidence that had to do with your upbringing and your relationships. What impact have your relationships had on your confidence?
Currently, a good one. I've only had 2 relationships. So the first one, not good at all. I think he was very, very, very similar to my mom with like what he would tell me, I guess, kind of like make me feel less than. Yeah, so that, I think I was also 14 to like 20 whenever I dated him. So that's just, I feel like a time of like a lot of development, and hearing that all through that is difficult for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds rough.
So yeah,
I think one of the scariest things, a lot of times when we're developing, we're just, we're more, you think about like if you're putting together, I can't even think of a good analogy, but like just while we're developing, we're kind of really malleable, and a lot of the things that we're exposed to, really stick with us way longer than they would have after we're formed.
Right. Because now I feel like if I was told any of those things now, I'd just be like, like, what's wrong with you? Like, leave me alone, But then it was like, I didn't even know it was wrong, I guess. So
what do you think it was that caused you to stay in the relationship for so long?
I think definitely I was like manipulated into, I think, you can be told that you're not good enough, but until they break you down to the point where you believe it, that's when you start staying. And I think that was very easy to get me to that point because I was so young. So
yeah. Was he
Yeah.
older?
Nope, same age, but he had older siblings that kind of like, well, only one of them, that kind of taught him, I guess, like not directly, but he saw it through other people.
Yeah. How to?
So,
I mean, so Farrell, I'm a little bit confused. You're smiling. Like, why are you? Like, this is awful.
ooh. Yeah, I think I've just talked about it so much at this point that it's almost like humorous to me that I would even let myself go through that.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Why do you think it's humorous?
I would
Oh.
just never let myself do that now, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's almost like crazy that I did then, but I don't want to blame myself for it. Like I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've done a lot of growing.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I think, sometimes the only thing that we can do is laugh
Yeah.
when things get really, really awful. I was thinking a
Right.
little bit about, I don't know if you guys have seen, and maybe I'm opening a Pandora's box here, but Dave Chappelle recently had a Netflix special that is very offensive to many people.
Mhm.
And the funny thing is that over the last 10 days, I'd say like 20 to 25% of my patients have brought up his like comedy like special
Oh,
for
wow.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think one of the interesting things, so one thing that one person said who's been through a lot of abuse is that he was kind of saying that, if you look at it, like all of the traditionally best comedians, like if you look at like in the kind of the heyday of comedy, they were all like minorities who were oppressed and abused. And it's all like Jewish people and black people, like early on, like we're talking like Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, I mean, this is like
Yeah.
before even my time, but, and I think we were talking a lot about how sometimes like humor is just what we have, right? When things are,
Right.
because it's like you
For
have a
sure.
choice between laughing and crying.
Yeah. I've already
And-
cried about it too much, so might as well
Yeah.
laugh now.
That's great. Okay, so I think unless you have any questions for me, Farrell?
I don't know. We've talked a lot, so I don't think I do have any questions actually.
Yeah, what was your impression of like this past I guess we've been talking about for about 45 minutes. Like how did that feel for you?
Good. Like I may have felt a little bit nervous at first, but I definitely don't feel nervous at all now. Yeah, no, it was really like helpful for sure. Definitely helpful.
Helpful how?
I think I did like get into my own emotions and don't really realize what's causing them. And so whenever I'm steered in the right direction of figuring them out, that's helpful to me to just understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that that was your impression because so first of all, I think you're great at this, whatever this
Thanks.
is. Because I think I think you've done a lot of like thinking through things and working through things kind of on your own, which shows.
Right. Yeah.
I also think you have you've made a couple of important transformations, which I don't think you kind of realized, and I think a lot of people need to make. And I think you're on a good path. If there's any way that I can support you, you have my contact info or whatever. So,
Yeah.
I work with a bazillion. It sounds like people in the medical field.
Yes.
But if you ever have questions or want me to review your personal statement or anything like that, just let me know.
Well, that'd be super helpful.
I work with a lot of. I think it's funny. I don't know their Twitch names, but I work with a lot of gamers who are interested in going into medicine.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Which is just, I guess, the people who are interested in going into medicine are the ones that are try hard enough to reach out to me. But
Yeah.
So I think I think you're on a good path, and if I can support you in some way, let me know.
Awesome.
And then I think we'll maybe take any closing thoughts.
From me or chat?
Either one.
Thank you. I think
Thank
that's really
you.
all I have to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to I'd love to check in with you again down the road whenever you feel comfortable, or if some of these thoughts or feelings arise again, like if you start to get wrapped up in streaming or find yourself starting to be concerned about how you're judged, because that too, by the way, that whole streaming conversation, that's your mom. Like you get that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
So it's all about, and that's what happens is like we now have a system where your mom is like operating based on like facial expressions and tone, but now we can actually stick a number on your value in society.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it can be really hard if you've been taught that. And a lot of what we're taught is based on what we see growing up. Like, if you just think about this, I don't know if I mean, I have kids, so I think I'm older than most of the people on Twitch, but like the crazy thing is if you just like look at kids, like kids just like, they just learn language. They don't have to be taught language, right?
Right.
They just learn how to talk.
Yeah.
And so we learn so much about who we, like how we operate based on how like behavior is modeled. Like my kid was telling one of her teddy bears this morning that she was getting irritated with it and was about to lose her temper. Right? And like, where did she learn how to say that? It was because my mom, I mean, oh wow, that's Freudian. My wife, my wife was like saying the same thing at her because she wasn't like eating her oatmeal. Like she'd asked for oatmeal and was like, so, you know, we pick up a lot from our parents. And I think that a lot of what you've picked up, I think you've picked it up from your mom. And at the same time, you know, that can have value, because one of the things that we forget is that just because something causes you suffering doesn't mean that it isn't a positive trait in society. So your mom's like social awareness is probably really important for her status and the kinds of relationships she builds. Once again, I'm making an assumption about where you're from in Texas, but I know that there's a certain amount of you know, social intelligence that is really important in running in certain circles.
Yeah.
So, you know, thank you for sharing all that stuff. I think you're on an awesome part of your journey. And I think it's awesome that you've adopted a more action orientation where you're just kind of saying like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do and I'm going to do the best that I can. And I may kind of screw up. It may not be perfect, but hopefully that's okay and you'll survive. And thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.